Today I'm going to read Chapter 6 from Hereafter by Hudson. We've met the characters, the main character, Amelia, who has what appears to be nightmares, but it really could be that she did die in a tragic accident where she jumped off a bridge and killed herself. And now she's able to kind of come out of this purgatory state of being. So she's met somebody who almost died. His name is Joshua. His car landed in the river, and he could see her as she was like a guardian angel. She saved him. And then she's now met Eli. And Eli is a dark figure who appeared out of the dark shadows of this riverbank area where all of this takes place. Chapter 6. That night, I didn't mark the passage of time with uncertain pacing as I had the day before. Instead, I marked the time in absolute stillness, crouched on the riverbank, my eyes never moving from the spot in the woods where Eli had disappeared. I remained motionless as dawn broke over the tops of the trees. I kept my hands pressed hard into the grass, ready at any moment to sprint away if I felt another gust of that cold wind. Finally, reluctantly, I stirred. Inch by inch, I raised myself out of my uneasy stance, never taking my eyes from the trees in front of me. I spared a glance upward, trying to gauge how long I'd crouched against the unknown. I blinked at the light in surprise. Although thick gray clouds covered most of the sky, I could see the occasional ray of sunshine break through, halfway between the east and west horizons. It had to be nearly midday. While I waited, almost an entire day had passed without Eli's return. Without a return of the dark, terrible world he'd shown me. Before me, the woods remained just that, normal, living woods with normal, living trees. I spared one glance over my shoulder. The river, once again a murky green, flowed rapidly toward High Bridge, beneath which lay nothing but the river itself. I willed my body to relax and then stretched each limb in turn. The effort was needless, since my dead muscles hardly had any reason to cramp, even when held in one position for many hours. Still, the gesture seemed appropriate. I wanted to feel my new resolve in my body as well as in my mind. Hold on, Andy. Andy, are you just going to come up here and just disrupt this whole reading right now, Andy? Come on, Andy! Listen to him. Before me, the woods remained just that, normal living woods with normal living trees. I spared one glance over my shoulder. The river, once again a murky green, flowed rapidly toward High Bridge, beneath which lay nothing but the river itself. I willed my body to relax and then stretched each limb in turn. The effort was needless, since my dead muscles hardly had any reason to cramp, even when held in one position for many hours. Still, the gesture seemed appropriate. I wanted to feel my new resolve in my body as well as in my mind, my resolve to never allow Eli to control me. This resolve felt important, essential, even because I suspected I would meet him again. Though Eli promised he would stay away for a while, he'd also said that there were many things about him and our kind that I didn't know or understand, things he would inevitably tell me. His words certainly had the ring of threat to them, especially when delivered in the awful place he'd shown me. Yet, although ignorant of my ghostly nature, I was no longer ignorant of some things. I didn't doubt that the next time the wind cut across my skin, I would know Eli was there. He couldn't take me back to that dark place without me first knowing he was present. There was some comfort in this knowledge. I couldn't promise myself I wouldn't be waiting, watching, dreading, but I refused to stay by this river anymore, because I didn't want to let fog or fear keep imprisoning me, and because it was almost noon, judging by position of the sun. Yesterday, I decided not to meet Joshua again. I'd had every intention of hiding and letting the confusion take me back. After Eli's sudden appearance, however, I had no intention of ever going back into the fog. I intended to stay as awake and alive as possible. And Joshua made me feel very much alive. He was the reason behind all of this change, this newness, the reason I'd woken up from the fog. I couldn't explain it, any more than I could explain why I'd wandered lost after death, or why I didn't now. But the new desires that had filled me after Joshua's accident hadn't changed. They'd grown stronger, more acute, even more than the first moment I saw him. I wanted to be near him. I wanted to feel him, maybe just once more. Anything, even the sight of him running away from me when he learned the truth, would be worth the risk. Now I sensed a new purpose to this day. I stared at the river and its bank one more time, drinking in the image of the green water and the summer-yellowed grass. This was the scene of so many of my changes, life to death, and maybe back to a sort of life again. Maybe. It was worth trying to find out. "See ya," I said aloud to the water, and I began to run, bare feet, flying across mud and grass, then pavement, leaving the river and High Bridge Road far behind me. I reached the park with only a little time to spare. A clock sitting atop a large wooden platform outside the park entrance read 11:50. I slowed my pace until I was almost strolling up the cedar-lined road that led to the picnic area. Although I'd run for miles, I wasn't winded or even ruffled. Still, I began to fidget, smoothing invisible wrinkles from the skirt of my dress and running my hands through the thick waves in my hair. I felt jittery. I guess a case of nerves could survive even death. I nearly turned my back, my previous resolve shrinking. My future hinged on Joshua and the outcome of our conversation. I felt this in my core, and I suddenly couldn't fathom how I decided to face him with such bravado. But my feet were traitors, or more loyal depending on one's perspective. They kept marching me down the road, through a parking lot and a thin grove of pines, past a cluster of empty benches and to the only occupied one. Joshua sat, not on the bench, but on the concrete table to which the bench was attached. He stared to his left, into the woods surrounding the picnic clearing. His profile, square jaw, high cheekbones, and full lips made me shiver as a wave of desire and fear washed over me. I watched his black eyebrows pull together while he continued to study the forest. Perhaps he was thinking I had, in fact, stood him up. "Hey, Joshua." Although I'd all but whispered, his head jerked toward me. Then a huge, radiant smile spread across his face. He jumped off the table and strode toward me, one arm lifted as if he intended to touch me. Instinctively, I took a quick step back. He stopped and frowned. Sorry, too enthusiastic?" "God, no, I just wasn't ready for this to end before it starts." "No," I said aloud. "Just unexpected." He laughed. "Sorry, I probably looked like a golden retriever or something, big dumb dog, but this was a little unexpected too, you know." "How so?" "You showed up. Unexpectedly." He half smiled, and the ghost of a dimple tugged at his cheek. I found myself smiling back a little too. I aimed to please. "Then mission accomplished." "Oh." "Brilliant, Amelia," I screamed in my head. Death had obviously not improved my vocabulary. Joshua's half-smile crept a little farther upward, possibly a sign of his amusement at the flustered look on my face. Unfortunately, our banter wasn't going to last forever. He swept one hand back to the table like a maitre d'. "A quiet park bench, as promised?" I sighed. No putting this off any longer, so it seemed. "Yeah, I guess it's time." Joshua's eyebrows knit together as I strode past him to the bench. "Look," he said, "I'm not going to conduct the Spanish Inquisition or anything." "I know," I said flatly. I sat down, feeling the pressure of the bench, but not really the bench itself, and folded my hands in my lap. Joshua turned toward me, but made no move to sit. I stared down at my lap and tried to ready myself for the inevitable ending, but there was something I needed to know first. "Before we get into explanations, can I ask you a question?" "Anything." I looked up to see him shove his hands into the pockets of his jeans and tilt his head to one side. Judging by his stance, he was probably more than a little bewildered by my behavior, so I asked my question carefully. "Did you intentionally drive off the bridge?" He barked out a sort of laugh. "Not exactly." It was odd, but I thought he sounded almost embarrassed. I too tilted my head and raised one eyebrow, encouraging him to continue. He laughed again, a little sheepishly, and a flattering blush spread across his cheekbones. "The only thing I did intentionally was take a stupid shortcut." I kept my eyebrows raised, so Joshua continued. "I was following a bunch of my friends to a party. For some crazy reason, I decided to take a shortcut across High Bridge Road by myself. I have no idea why I did. My family practically forbids me to drive over the bridge since it's such a death trap. Anyway, right before I crossed onto High Bridge, I thought I saw something in the river. I was distracted, and when I looked back at the road, I saw something dart out at me. A deer or a bobcat, maybe. It looked so black I couldn't be sure. I swerved to miss it, and then my car spun out across the bridge. I must have hit my head on the steering wheel because I really don't remember any part of the crash after that. Thank God I'd rolled down the windows. I guess that's how I got out of the car before I sank with it." "And your friends got there so fast because—" He gave an embarrassed shrug. "Because I had the beer in my car." As he finished, I exhaled slowly. I was grateful that at least one of my theories behind our interaction was wrong. Suicide wasn't our commonality. It was only our mutual deaths. however brief his had been. Would it be weird, Joshua, if I said I'm glad? Why? Because I like beer? I smiled slightly. No, because you didn't mean to drive off the bridge. He laughed. Then that's not weird at all. I wouldn't exactly choose High Bridge for my exit scene, you know. I gasped. Seeing my strange reaction, he spoke quickly, almost apologetically. Sorry, look, I don't know what I'm saying. I'm not trying to upset you or anything. You really don't have to do this, to tell me anything, that is. But I do, I said, unable to keep the misery out of my voice. I don't really think I have a choice if I ever want to talk to you again, if you'll even want to talk to me afterward. Why wouldn't I want to talk to you? His gentle tone and the implication in his words made me meet his gaze. With his strange blue eyes locked onto mine, I felt a little ache ignite again in my chest. You won't want to talk to me because I'm going to tell you the truth. And the truth will make me, what, decide to shun you? He grinned and raised one eyebrow, obviously skeptical. Something like that, I murmured. I find that hard to believe, he said as he momentarily broke our eye contact to walk over to the bench and finally sit beside me. Actually, you're probably going to find what I'm about to tell you hard to believe. But it's the truth. He clasped his hands and leaned closer to me, placing his elbows on his knees before raising his eyes back to mine. Good. I want to hear the truth, Amelia. Inexplicably, my breath quickened. A pulse, one I knew I didn't have, began to race through my arms and along my neck. I could swear I felt heat from the nearness of his body, heat that threatened to turn into a blush on my unblushable cheeks, the kind of heat that could make me do or say just about anything. Words started to fall from my mouth almost before I thought of them. You said you saw me under the water, right? Yes. And you're the only person who saw me at all? Yes. He kept his voice patient, calm. My voice, however, trembled as I continued. Well, I think you saw me because you were dead. He frowned again. I know I was dead, at least for a few seconds, but I'm not sure I'm following you. You couldn't see me at first, right? Not before you died. The more I spoke, the less I could breathe. Joshua seemed to be struggling, too, with where I was heading. He responded slowly, methodically, as if he needed to hold tightly to reason in this conversation. Amelia, I couldn't see you because I was unconscious before my heart stopped. No, well, you were unconscious, but that's not the only reason you couldn't see me. Even if you were conscious, you still wouldn't have been able to see me. Not yet, anyway. Huh? His frown deepened, and he leaned away from me. Suddenly, I couldn't stop the flow of my words. It was like pulling a piece of thick tape from my mouth. I wanted to rip it off, tear through my explanation so I could breathe again. I have a theory, sort of. I can't be sure, but I think I can't be seen unless someone is, well, like me. That's why the people on the shore couldn't see me, and that's why Eli can see me, because he's like me. Who's Eli? I was in such a hurry to get the truth out that I'd lost control of the things tumbling from my mouth. Sorry, I moaned. I dropped my head into my hands and squeezed my eyes tightly shut. I'm not making any sense, am I? Joshua's response surprised me. He didn't sound frustrated or even confused. Instead, his voice was hushed, intense. Amelia, I'm trying very hard to understand this. I know something strange happened. Is happening. I'll believe your explanation. Just go slow, okay? My eyes flew open and met his. His eyes were lovely and serious. They reminded me of the night sky. I tried to shake the distraction of them from my head so I could focus on this horrible conversation. Joshua, I have no idea how to say this. It's okay. It'll be okay. I turned away from him, staring at but not really seeing the patch of red dirt in front of us. When I spoke again, I did so slowly, painfully. I think you saw me, and you can still see me, because we have some sort of, I don't know, magical or spiritual connection. You're like me, or you were, at least, for a moment. Joshua's eyes narrowed, and by like you mean that you died. The word died hung heavy in the air between us, like an axe waiting to drop. Joshua's forehead wrinkled as he tried to make sense out of my words, tried to follow the convoluted path I'd laid. He may not have connected all of the pieces yet, but he would. As each second passed, I could see it happening, piece by piece. He would rip off the bandage at any moment, would either call me a lunatic or worse, believe me. Okay, he started haltingly. You and I have both died. Me in the river and you sometime in the past? Yes, in the same river, actually. Wow. He blinked in surprise, but then composed himself again. So you're saying this connection is the reason I was the only one who could see you? Some sort of magic or something? He said the last words uncertain. politely as though he were trying out a strange new language. I think so. I bent my head down toward my lap again. And the connection exists because you died? He asked. I only nodded. And you came back to life like me? A heartbeat or two passed, and then, no, Joshua, not that part. For a while there was silence. Then I heard him suck in a sharp breath. Here it was, the moment, the finale. I finished it off with nothing but a whisper. You see, Joshua, I never did come back to life. At the worst possible moment, I had one of those new, unpredictable sensations. I could suddenly feel the warm breeze against the skin of my legs and arms. The air felt charged, electric, like the gray sky would tear open and let thunder and lightning and all hell break loose around us. Goosebumps rose on my arms, real goosebumps, like the ones Eli had inspired. I couldn't look up at Joshua's face, but I could hear him stammering, making incredulous little noises. Then he became very quiet and still. This stillness lasted for possibly a full minute before he spoke with an unnatural calm. Amelia, are you trying to tell me you're dead? I spoke immediately. It felt wrong to delay the inevitable any longer. Dead, he repeated the word without any inflection. Another heartbeat passed, and then, unexpectedly, Joshua leaped off of the bench. He spun around to face me. I stared up at him, undoubtedly wild-eyed and frantic. His face, however, was expressionless. He wore a sort of mask, hiding terror, anger, disbelief, hatred. I had no idea. I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand the frozen look on his face, the look I'd put there with the truth. He thought I was crazy, or he knew I was dead. Whichever conclusion he'd made, I would certainly lose him, however little I'd had him. In this moment, I felt impossibly and utterly alone. Alone for eternity, probably, and now painfully aware what I would be missing. I'm sorry, I moaned, apologizing to him, to myself, to who knows who, and clasped a hand over my mouth. I was so lost in sorrow for myself, I almost didn't notice it. Something on my cheek, something warm and wet, trailing its way to the corner of my lips. Without taking my eyes from his empty face, I touched one finger to the edge of my eye. I pressed the fingertip to my lips. It tasted salty. A tear. My dead eyes had shed a tear. Something about that single tear must have stirred Joshua, because his frozen expression suddenly melted. His eyes and mouth softened. Amelia. His voice was rough and it broke. My name had never sounded more beautiful. Joshua reached out to me, moving his hand as if to cup it around my cheek. Without giving a thought to anything but the ache that raged inside me, I leaned into his gesture. Nothing could have prepared us for the moment when his skin, once again, touched mine. Ooh, chapter 6. They're getting ready to get hot and heavy. Joshua and a dead girl, Amelia. Is she really dead? What are you thinking? I'm thinking maybe they were like boyfriend, girlfriend, and they maybe died at the same time, and I don't know. It's kind of weird. Lots of possibilities. I look forward to continuing with chapter 7 tomorrow.